direction that you've given us. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. All right, Christ is risen. And you guys got it down, Pat. I'm not going to try to trick you too much here any this evening, but we've been going through the Gospel of Mark since Christmas. Since there, we've been going through there, and the name of the series has been Revealing True Power. When we've been seeing how the Gospel of Mark has been showing us the story of Jesus, has been revealing the true nature of the kingdom of God. And today, he shows us this true nature through women who they make their way to the empty tomb and they see that Christ is risen. They are filled with astonishment and amazement that the light of the new day sun has revealed their amazement as it beams into the tomb that they see is now empty. Christ is risen. The whole reason why I do that is an expression of my own power over like this whole thing, right? Like, so the first thing to really understand what we're talking about today that you have to understand about me is I love roller coasters, all right? Love them. I can remember being 5 years old. Now, I was not a very tall child, right? I was very short growing up. And some of you are looking at me, you're like, I get it. I get it. He's got short person energy. Like, I get it. Like, and I remember being 5 and was finally able to be tall enough to ride the Mind Bender at Six Flags over Georgia. Yeah, Six Flags, all right, I loved it. And I've been like a coaster freak ever since then. To the point where when I was 14, I went over to Busch Gardens in Tampa, and I rode Montu there 84 times in one day. All right? Like that. Some of you are like, no, that's not real. That must be a record. It's not a record. The record's like 146. It's just however many they can run in the day. So they, but no, 84 times in one day. I love coasters, and I love it. And the king of coasters for me right now is at Universal Orlando, and it's Velocicoaster. Has anyone been on that yet? No. That's an adamant no. Yes. Good job. I'm glad one person has ridden what is arguably the best coaster in the country right now, like over there. And some of you are going, oh, but I'm too frail and old. I hear what you're saying. Like that's exactly your exact words. My own mother rode it about 3 months ago, and she's 70. So I don't know what your guys' excuse is. You're just some weenie babies, all right? Like that's all I'm gonna say about that. But the coaster's unbelievable. I love it. It doesn't take you up to the top of a hill and drop you. It shoots you off. It's great. It has little maneuvers that are kind of like this and stuff like that. This is I think a better picture of that same maneuver. Like it's my favorite ride right now. It's unbelievable. I love coasters. And so whenever I go to Orlando, and many of you know I go to Orlando a lot. My bosses are up in Orlando. I have other things up there. I will often go to Universal Orlando and just go ride some rides like that. It's just what I do. I live a bougie life like that. All right, like that's it. I just come in and I'll go ride some things. So last time I was there 3 weeks ago, I was waiting in there. I'm always in line by myself because Coley's also a weenie baby and won't ride it with me. So I'm by myself, so I talk with people and all that stuff, and no one was willing to talk that day, but that's not what this is about. So I get on the ride, and I thought I was going to ride it by myself. I was like the last row, which is pretty good. And then I thought I was going to ride it by myself, and all of a sudden this guy gets on and he sits down. He's got big eyes, like that. That's probably has something to do with the ride. And he's over there, and he's just like an average dude, maybe just a smidgen shorter than me, and like very skinny guy. He's probably in his 20s, 20s. And I looked over at him, I was like, hey, how you doing? He's like, oh, I'm great, And I go, have you ever ridden this before? Good, like warming up the conversation. And he goes, no. Cool, all right. First time Velocicoaster rider. But the way he answered his no was weird. The way he answered it made me ask him, have you ever ridden a roller coaster before? That too was no. And I went, what? Like, you haven't ridden anything here? Like at Universal? Like, no, like, well, I've never ridden anything, like any kind of roller coaster before. It's like, what? Like that's how did this happen? And I imagine, his family was probably there at Universal having a good time, and he's like, let's ride that. And they're like, no, it's crazy looking. It's got stuff like that in it. And they're like, no, over there. He's like, I'm gonna do it. You guys are all weenie babies. And he gets on, and I'm like, well, this ride's a blast, man. You're gonna love it. And we get down in there, and then it takes off, and the handles are in front of you, and his hands from like here down are just white, like just, and he's got some color in his skin, and they are just white because he's holding on, and I'm trying to look at him as we're like riding, like how's is he enjoying it? He's like got a big smile, no smile, he's just like just all this stuff going on, and it's great, and this is kind of the last thing it does, and after it does this little spin, it like hits the brakes real hard, and you stop, and I turn over to him like, what'd you think? And you watched as like light just filled up his face, and he's just like, oh, that was the best thing ever. Oh my goodness. Like I was over there, it was like fist bumps for days. He's just like, oh my gosh. And like, you've ridden it, that's how it is at the end. Like everyone's just like, what in the world did I just go through? Like it just like, and he's like, that was again. Like he just was going, and it was intoxicating. Riding this, like what is arguably one of the best rides in the world right now. And this guy was just like, could not contain himself over there. And it was such an experience for me, seeing his amazement, that I wasn't even out of the Jurassic Park area yet, and I had already called one of my coaster head friends and said, like, I just rode Velocicoaster with someone who's never ridden it before. Like, and it's like, oh, and it blew his mind. That idea is the core to what Mark is wanting us to see. Just uncontained, doesn't make sense amazement at what they just experienced. And Mark, the gospel writer, is leading breadcrumbs all through the Gospel of Mark, giving us these moments of utter amazement, telling us and is showing us that it's gospel moments. The first one of these is in chapter 2. And Jesus has gotten incredibly popular very quickly. And he's just inside of his house, and like the rest of the neighborhood is also inside of it with him, including the Pharisees and the religious leaders, those guys that wear white robes and all that like to appear like they're in charge. They also are not into him, but they're in there too. And he's teaching to all these people inside of his house. Then all of a sudden, light streams up from the top, made dirty by the dust of like a construction site, as guys are ripping a hole in his roof, right? And they have grabbed one of their friends that is paralyzed, and they begin to lower their paralyzed friend down from the roof. And they lower him down. Now, if you were that paralyzed friend, what do you think your reaction would be? Would you be like, yes, look at me. My friends are lowering me from the roof. No, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Jesus. Like my friends grab me. They're faster than me. I can't run well. Like I got problems here. Like, I'm sorry about the roof. They did it. I know, it's funny, isn't it, Jacob? And they just don't know what's going on. And he's like scared, and you can tell that Jesus, with love and acceptance and grace in his eyes, he goes, I get that there's a hole in my roof, and that's going to be an issue when it rains, but your sins are forgiven. You're okay. But the religious fuddy-duddies in the corner that are wearing the white robes and all that stuff, they're like, that's no good. You can't be doing stuff like that. And through the murmurs of that unapproving crowd, Jesus looks right at the man who cannot walk and says, what's more powerful? That I say your sins are forgiven, or say, get up, take up your mat, and walk. And so that you know that the Son of Man has the complete power to forgive sins, take up your mat and walk. And I love to picture this scene. I love to picture this scene where that hole in the roof there is beaming light through it, cloaking this now standing man in a glorious light as it reveals his new ability to walk home. And everyone was amazed. Everyone was amazed. Words of the resurrection. When the light burst into the tomb that was already empty, and they all ran away amazed. Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed.
Yeah. But what darkness have you gone through? What darkness are you feeling where you don't feel like God could be with you? There's another story where Jesus and the boys get into a boat and they begin to cross the Sea of Galilee, and it starts to get dark and the clouds form around them. They begin to bill around, and the wind and waves start coming up, and it starts moving the boat to and fro, and the waves and the wind is like picking up water and dumping it into the boat. And the disciples begin to strain at the oars, and you can tell that they are grabbing anything they can to like bail water out of the boat as possible. And you can tell they start counting, and they're like, there's 12 of us. There's actually 13 if you include Jesus. Like, where's Jesus? And you can tell probably Peter from the corner. He's like, God, Jesus is asleep on the one comfortable place in this small boat. Jesus is asleep. And you can tell that they go up to him and they're like, what in the world, Jesus? Why are you asleep? How in the world are you asleep? Don't you care that we are going to die out here in this boiling, turbulent storm and die in the abode of Leviathan in the sea? And immediately Jesus wakes up and he rebukes the winds and the waves, and immediately it goes calm. And I love to picture the scene that immediately goes calm at the boat, and those huge waves are still there outside, and one singular moonbeam is coming down, lighting up the boat on a tranquil sea as it all filters out around it. And the disciples look at him with amazement and fear, for even the wind and the waves obey him. They are filled with amazement and fear, words of the resurrection, just like when the light burst into the tomb that was already empty, and they ran away amazed. Have you ever felt overpowered by the darkness, that it feels like God is just asleep on some cushion, not paying attention? There's another story when Jesus and the boys, they land off the Sea of Galilee again, and they're walking, and there's all these people crowd in all around them. And then suddenly this bigwig shows up, the guy who's like in charge of the local synagogue, kind of the local big church, right? He comes up, and he has tried everything. He's tried everything, and he comes up to Jesus, and he's like, Jesus, come quick. My daughter is dying. He's like, Jesus, I know that we haven't ever seen eye to eye, but I need you to come. You're my only option that is left. And Jesus agrees, and they begin this journey to this man's house to heal his daughter. But everyone there wants to see Jesus. And they're crowding in all around him, pushing in around him. They're wanting prayers. They're wanting blessings. They want to see if it's true that Jesus really is who he says he is, who people say he is. They want to see if prophets and men of God still walk on the earth. But walking through the sea of people, it takes time. It takes time. Takes too much time. And suddenly the servant of that synagogue leader comes up to him, and he's like, don't bother Jesus anymore. It's too late. Your daughter has died. The light is gone. It's only darkness. Can you imagine what the crowd was like then? All this fervor pushing in, was there a collective, like a sigh at the end of something stressful? It's like, everyone pulls away. I think about that father, desperately looking for the cure for his daughter's illness, and he has missed her last few breaths. And Jesus stops him. Imagine he grabs his shoulder and he says, it's okay. Just believe. And they move. They go to the largest house in that small neighborhood, surrounded by all the people that are paid to cry and wail loudly there. And they go into the house. They go into the room with the shutters drawn that has the little girl in there. Just her parents, just the disciples and Jesus. And with the care of someone who has fathered the entire world, he bent down and said to her, little girl, get up. And I love to picture this scene. Here in the dark, shade-drawn room, suddenly her eyes open and she moves her head to the side and her light catches the one solitary beam of light coming through the shutters. It hits her light and fills the entire room with light and life and being as she gets up and moves and runs and dances about the room. And they are astonished, for life came from death. They were amazed. Words of the resurrection, when the light burst into the tomb that was already empty, and they ran away amazed. That darkness can feel like it's always there and it's stifling. But on that first Easter morning, when the sun and the light came up and shone into that empty tomb, that fresh light was revealing what God had already done in the darkness. The darkness is undone, it's overturned, it's upside down. So may you, and here's your Easter blessing, may the light of Easter reveal to you how God is saving and working even in the midst of your darknesses. May you see the empty tomb and that even in the darkness and the death is overturned. May you see that. And may you live and see and understand all those women and even my little friend that I don't know his name, who was amazed on Velocicoaster. For when Cris was amazed on his first roller coaster ride. For when we all just look at even the amazing things of the first time our sons and daughters walk. When we're amazed when we see a flower that seemed to stand out. When we're amazed at the small or the big things, that we may stand with the women and run from the tomb in amazement because Christ is risen. And let's pray. Jesus, we thank you that you're with us. Lord, give us eyes to see the amazing things around it. And may we be with those women there at the tomb and have amazement and see that you are indeed alive. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. So thank you so much.